The foundation of human understanding teaches an observation exercise, often called meditation, which permits you to become objective toward your problems and allows your heartaches, bad habits, fears, and anxieties to be completely eliminated from your life without effort on your part. Until you have begun to practice this exercise, much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life. And now, from the foundation of human understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Well, welcome to the program, How to Control Your Negative Emotions. And I have to apologize to my viewers, and of course my audience, which are my viewers, for my past antics, meaning that I think I go a little too fast for everybody. And now that I've decided to stay on television for a while, I can spread these thoughts out and pace it a little slower so you can follow. It's like throwing an encyclopedia at you. It's just too much. I just want you to absorb just enough so that you can apply it. So I thought we'd start at the very, very beginning, and in this discipline of controlling your negative emotions. And the technique is meditation. There are many kinds of meditation. Most meditations are hypnotic, self-hypnotic. There's the kind of meditation, Maharishi's meditation, where you mutter a mantra and you repeat this meaningless sound. It's supposed to have a meaning, but most of it doesn't. As a matter of fact, the less meaning it has, the better for the purposes of the meditator who is escaping from reality. You know, you can drink to escape from reality. You can play music to escape from reality. You can have peace when you escape from reality, from escaping from knowing that you're wrong. That way you sort of kill your conscience. And you do that with trivia. And the more trivial it is, the more it has an anesthetizing effect on your conscience. So what happens when you close your eyes and you utter a mantra, whether it's a church mantra or a Maharishi mantra, all mantras have the same effect as music. You lose yourself in a sound and you move away from reality. And you feel, all of a sudden, you feel happy and you smile like a Cheshire cat. Nearly all those kind of people who meditate. You ever see that funny look on Maharishi's face? Like this, like the cat swallowed a canary. I didn't do it. It's sort of peace apart from God, not peace with Him. Now the purpose of meditation is not to become hypnotically involved in some technique which gives control over to the person who gives you the mantra. The person who gives you the mantra you believe in, and you end up by following his techniques in a hypnotic state connected to the mind of your guru. So in effect, you are hypnotized and you do not know you're hypnotized. We'll have a discussion one evening of what hypnosis is all about too. But you're hypnotized and you're in a state of lesser consciousness, not greater consciousness, but less consciousness often seems like more consciousness. Because your dreams become more vivid. Ambition becomes possible and not forbidden. Less consciousness is more exciting. And it takes excitement to produce lesser consciousness. It gives you illusion of yourself. It takes you aware of guilt. It takes you away from guilt and releases you from the pain of guilt. So it seems to free you and give you a sensation of freedom. But freedom from knowing the truth. Freedom, from God is an enslavement to that which frees you. You see, it's just like if you smoke and drink. It frees you from conscience. It takes you away from guilt. It's peace apart from God, but an enslavement to the processes that aid and abet you in this way. So enough said about the negative, wrong way of meditating. I want to show you about the right way of meditation, what the purpose is. Now, the trouble with all of us, and the reason why we have to meditate, is because We are reflections of our environment. That's all we are. Simply conditioned reflex responses. And we've built a personality, an identity, from these reactions. We're the extensions of our environment. And as human beings, that ought not be so. Now, animals, rightly so, are the evolution, if you like, of their environment. They are made of their environment, the substance of their environment. They are turned on, motivated by their environment, forces in their environment. They take on the likeness and the form of their environment. The chameleon can adapt to its environment. The giraffe develops a long neck through a process of genetic passing its survival mechanisms on to the next generation. It's selection, it's natural selection. But all animals and all creatures are tied to their environment, and as such they are slaves. And I don't want to go into a lot on that subject, but it's sufficient to say that they are just reflections and subject to the gravitational pull. They're not free. They're subject to that environment. There's not a thing in this universe that's free. Everything moves in orbits and circles. If everything was free, if anything was free in this universe, the universe would be chaotic. I mean, only human beings can be free from their original environment, which is their conscience. And they are free because most people, the reason why we want to be free, because we want to attain to the vain, to the glorious state that a God has. In other words, we all try to be God. Most of us unconsciously, because the whole process of being caught up in the process of being God is unconscious. We have to be unconscious of the reality. Because if we were conscious of reality, you see, then we could see by the light of that reality that we couldn't be God. So as long as we want to be God, see, we have to find something that pulls us away from realizing that this can't be so, and gives us the lie that it can be so. And this state is a lesser consciousness, but it seems like a greater consciousness, if you see what I mean, because it fulfills a dream, a concept, or a dream promise, a dream hope. Anything that fulfills that dream hope, see, gives us the idea that we're becoming more when we're becoming less. Every high is a new low. Every person who drinks, everybody who goes to church and gets high on going to church, everybody who gets the ego titillated, stimulated, has this purpose of getting away from the reality that they are less into the illusion that they're more. See, so now, for this reason, all human beings who are prideful are caught up with their external reality, and they know very little of the inner reality that they were born to know and to take shape from. And for this reason, we all have conflict, because it's a wordless language. It's an experience we have probably never tasted from the day we were born, because the environment that we come into is full of egomaniacs, full of crazy souls, all wrongs trying to be a right, that have no tolerance for you, your innocence. They're afraid that your innocence will shine through you and make them ashamed. Therefore, they have no tolerance for the truth in themselves, nor do they have, and less do they have tolerance for the truth in you. Now, yes, young lady, with just 1 second, we'll have, I'm glad you put your hand up, because we don't have too many questions. I'm glad you have the courage to stand up and say whatever you want to say. Thank you.
Well, I wondered, why is it that it always happens to be one member in a family who happens to be the outspoken one, the one who questions and is always being considered a troublemaker?
Yes, well, that's always the case. You're correct. Some of the brightest people are alcoholics, because when they come into the world, they come into a scumbag environment, if you'll pardon the vernacular. And that scumbag environment, whether it's school, whether it's family, when they have a bright little innocent thing that starts to look through its crystal clear blue eyes and see the world for what it is and the family for what it is, it creates a great deal of pain, because the light is still shining through that child. It's not put out yet, it's not corrupted. It isn't supportive. When somebody's worse than yourself, you can condemn them. If they're like yourself, then you support one another. Neither way are you threatened. You see what I'm saying? So the little child comes into the world and it sees the insanity and the craziness and the foolishness. And it doesn't have to say very much. It only has to, is to look with that look. Like I have. I had that childlike innocence in me. I still have it. My wife has always told me, now I believe it. Because she's always seen it. It's always scared the hell out of her, needless to say. And she's always tried to put it out. But thank good she couldn't. Thank goodness for her, you see. She benefits by it. But it bothered her that I could see. It bothered her that she couldn't control me. See? And it bothers people that you can see them for what they are. You see what I'm saying?
Off and on, but I've been made to doubt it more than I have.
Yes, well, there's your secret. Faith and doubt. And we had a lecture on that subject before, but the whole idea, thank you for the question, is to come back to that original innocence that you lost as a child. Because when you went to school, and when you were around people children who were destroyed, they always ridiculed. They ridiculed just like once they become destroyed, they have no tolerance for your innocence either. So even children destroy children. You see, so what's very important for you and everybody is to come back to the original innocence, and because we are originally designed to respond from the inner ground of that being, and to take shape and to flower from that invisible ground of being rather than the visible ground, you see, because it is born into us, because we're spirit as well as flesh, see, and because that spiritual part of us groans in the conflict, because it's not its natural environment to be steeped in emotion and compensate from the earth like the animals do, you see, and to take their motivations from one another, you see, because you grow and evolve depending on how you react and what motivates you. You take your nature from what motivates you. So if you react to the world outside you, and you know, when you come into the world, you're not taught how to prevent that from happening, and on the contrary, you're taught that it's right that you should react to environment, you should love, you should hate, you should overreact, you should seek pleasure and excitement and thrills, and you're taught to seek that to complete the self. But that's not the true self. Another self starts to grow up in its place. And this self, the darker self, the earth self, the death-centered self actually, conflicts with the purpose for which we were created, and it serves a different God. It serves a different system. It serves a different spirit. Now some people are content to serve that spirit, and some people like to kosherize it, religiousize it, and meditate it. But those kind of people will always be seeking the truth, just like the alcoholic seeks the truth. The truth he seeks is oblivion to the truth. He seeks the excitement and the confirmation that he is all right when he's not. That could be done religiously, it could be done meditatively, it could be done by drugs, and it could be done by music. But those kind of people get what they deserve. They think they're getting better and better and better, and they're becoming more and more animals. You see, now, the purpose of the meditation is for you people who feel suffering and realize that something is wrong with the way you exist. And you're seeking that something missing part of yourself that you may have never known. And I have sought that in my life, and I have found the answer. And I found that we have to disconnect. We must shut off. A lot of emotionally disturbed people are so emotionally disturbed that they shut out everything. They shut down their reactions, and they literally die inside. They become catatonic, because the pain of the overwhelming emotions and effect of environment is too much for their subconscious, even for their subconscious mind to bear. It's very destructive. Once you start reacting, you react more and more and more and more until your arteries burst and you have strokes and blood pressure, disease. You know, there's only so much emotion you can take. And of course, the more guilty you are, the more emotion you need to escape from reality. So eventually you have more emotion than animals normally need to function, because you're using it to escape guilt. But that itself is guilt. See, when you're rejecting truth with emotion, you got more guilt for rejecting truth. What is guilt but rejecting truth? To become whatever it is you want to become. To find freedom, such freedom as you think is freedom, to do your own thing, but it isn't your own thing. You're actually becoming shaped by your environment, and a very ugly thing is beginning to take form in you. Now, some people don't want to ever see that, and they're content to live in their religions, in their drug, and their drunken stupor, and their music. But you people, you are searching. You're the sincere ones. You're not. Your soul is not compatible with what makes other people happy makes you unhappy. You'll do the same thing, but you won't enjoy it the way they do. It breeds the dissatisfaction, where them it breeds only a greater hunger. It may breed a greater hunger in you, but also a greater dissatisfaction. You begin to know eventually there's something wrong with it, and you know that when you finally realize there's something wrong with it, you seek a higher ground. Then you hear a man like me. And I have found the way. I want to show it to you this evening. First part. We have to understand the psychodynamics of the meditation. Okay, you know that, as I stated in the opening of my discussion, that the reason why people are motivated by their environment is because technically they are separated from the ground of their being. There's only two places a consciousness can live. It can live in the thoughts and emotions, and therefore be the extension of reaction, feeling, thought, right? And then believe whatever they want to believe, because the reactions and the feelings produce the thoughts, the kind of thoughts they want to believe. And they're caught up in the thoughts, so much caught up in the thoughts, so fixated are they can never find reality because they think they already have it. They think they're already happy. See, they think they found love. So and so and so and so. So, the secret is then, you must separate from your thought process. Like dreaming. You know when you're dreaming, a bad dream, a nightmare, and you know how your emotions are evoked, sexual emotions in a dream with sexual feelings, of fear, horror, some horrible creatures chasing you with knives, headless monster. You open the door to escape and there's two headless monsters in there. See, greater horror. What is the way to deal with the emotions in your dream? The only real way is to wake up. When you wake up, you are more objective than you were when you were asleep. A strange thing happens when you wake up, when you're more objective. The light shining through the window of your soul comes to bear on the thoughts, and you say, oh, that's not reality. Why should I react to it? You're not saying that. But the very fact that you awaken from the Alice in Wonderland state that you're in is sufficient to calm the emotions. I don't know if I told you the story, but when I was in boarding school, we were, a lot of naughty little kids, and one day we had a pillow fight, and the door opened and closed in the dormitory. Someone obviously come in, and the light went on, and everybody was fast asleep, but there was all feathers floating all over. This is a true story. See, the moral to the story is when the authority comes in the room, the little boys behave themselves. And when the authority is not there, everything is in the turmoil. They do what they like. Now your body is a donkey, it's stupid. It's subject to all the environmental pressures, other kids' feelings and impish desires. But the minute the authority comes in, the light shines, comes through the window, and you start to become conscious, the little gremlins of your underworld, unconscious thinking, start to behave themselves. Now, you don't need to control yourself any more than to become conscious, but you people sitting in this room, I know that many of you are practicing the meditation that I'm teaching you, but before you learned it, you lived in a state of, you were not completely conscious. You see, animals are awake, but they're not aware. Yes, ma'am. The young man will bring the microphone over.
How do you explain the phenomenon of dolphins then?
Well, I don't know about dolphins. Dolphins are still an animal, has no consciousness, like animals do.
But it does have awareness.
No, it does have no awareness.
Then why does it save people, and why does it come around when there's sounds and music?
It has nothing to do with awareness.
It doesn't?
It has nothing to do with awareness, but we haven't got the time to discuss it this
Okay.
evening because we'll get off the subject.
Okay.
Animals cannot have awareness like human beings. Only man is made in the image of the Creator and has something of the Creator in him, some of his nature in him. So we have two natures. We have a nature from the earth and a nature from below and from above.
So you're saying that animals can have a consciousness, but it's not like
They
humans.
have no, they're not even conscious. They are awake and then they're asleep. Do you know that people can walk around, as a matter of fact, you can walk around in a semi-conscious state. You can walk down the street and not even see your best friends when you're preoccupied with your thoughts. You can actually drive down the street and drive 20 miles and forget that have you ever been driven a long way and not know how you got there? But you drove safely. You drove in a state of sort of somnambulism, but your consciousness wasn't present. But your unconscious mind was sufficient to stop at stoplights and do all kinds of things that were perfectly safe. People with amnesia can have no consciousness and still do what they do, but not have consciousness of what they're doing. Yes, sir.
Yeah. What you just said about people doing something while being conscious about what they're doing.
Oh, yes, but I didn't want to go into... I'm trying to talk about meditation now, and the only reason why I brought that up is because I wanted to sort of show you an aspect of consciousness which is important into the meditative state.
Yes. Well, about the meditation exercise, what you said about how we get mostly lost in our dream state when we're asleep. Is this the reason why?
No. You get lost in your dream state while you're awake.
Well,
See now that it's bad enough when you in your sleep, but when a person, let's put it this way. Let's say the subconscious mind is a deep ocean, and there are sharks and swordfish and octopus and barracuda, and you're swimming around down in that ocean. Now you're going to be terrified because you never know when the octopus or the shark is going to grab your leg. You're going to be preoccupied because you're immersed in the soup of the sea. Now you feel much more relieved if you can get out into a boat or even to a helicopter and become distance yourself from the sea, even just be on top of it. Well, on top of it is not as safe as being in a helicopter, just above it, because there's still going to be a shark bigger than your boat, using that as an analogy, okay? So it is, so that hypnotic states, dream states, even though if you put somebody in a state of hypnosis and you wake them up, the fact that they're awake still leaves them connected to the suggestions you put into their mind. See, so that they may be on the surface of the water and maybe in the boat, but the boat can still be rocked. They can still feel the waves, see, and the tempest of the sea. They're not completely safe. They're still subject to the environmental programming you can put them in. They're connected to that. And as long as your soul is connected, see, to that unconscious stream, the ocean, you will always be affected by your past, by your guilts. You'll always struggle against whatever feelings rise. But what can a person do? You're swimming around in an ocean with jaws. I mean, you can't think very clearly about anything else but jaws. See, you're limited in your thinking capacity. But if you could be free and have a nice big boat, or go fishing from your helicopter so you really couldn't get you. You know, you're actually on your territory. You're fishing, you know, you're on your territory. You go hunting for alligators. You don't go in the water with the alligator. You try to get him onto your ground, right? Into your element. All right, now, that's fair enough analogy. Meditation, you must separate the conscious mind from the unconscious ocean. Now, there's only two places the conscious mind can be. It's like an airplane, okay? The airplane's a beautiful design. You really don't fully appreciate the design of the airplane until it takes to the air. When it's on the ground, it obeys the law of the ground, laws of the earth, gravity there. But the minute it gathers certain speed and it reaches airspeed, then suddenly the laws of the air take over. Now, it's the same thing in the objective state man. There's only two places you can be. You can be on the ground, in the ocean, subject to the earthquakes and convulsions and vibrations, your subconscious thinking. Or you can be objective in the air, subject to the laws of the air. Now this is what you want to be. Your soul is either subject, you're an airplane, and your proper place is in the sky. You come to rest every now and then, but rest is not your true place, on the ground. Only when you're in the air, objective to the thought stream, can you appreciate and experience the laws of the air, the laws of that other dimension. Can you know the truth? If you don't have that state, you may know the truth, but you're not subject to it, because even though you're an airplane designed for the air, the ground has got you. You see? So if you could be in the objective state, you'll be like the authority that came into the room with the feathers floating around, you know. You have that effect on your subconscious little boys, your naughty little boys, unruly emotions of your subconscious. You have that effect without even struggling. It's just like when you wake up from a nightmare, you have the effect of waking up from your nightmare, although you're not fully conscious, meaning you may be awake but not completely aware. Now, in my next discussion with you, I'm going to go into the difference between awake and aware. Of course, actually, I've touched on that to some degree. But an awareness is a different state. It's when you are awake on the surface of the water, still touching, that's awake. But aware is separate from the surface and with absolute mastery over all of your emotions, with a full knowledge of God. Otherwise, if you're just awake and not aware, you may know the truth, but you can't live it. You're still subject to the laws of the subconscious. And that's, in psychology, they should be teaching you this. See? But they don't understand these things. You only have to begin with, you only have to be conscious. All right, now, I want to thank you for being with me with this segment of the program, and tomorrow night we're going to go on. It'll still be tonight for us, but for the viewers it's going to be tomorrow night with this thing on meditation. So hope that you'll join us again, the viewers that is, and get the meditation that we are selling at the foundation. If you can't afford it, we'll give it to you for whatever you can afford. Thanks for listening, and join us again. We're discussing the dynamics of meditation. And now, this evening, I want to show you how to meditate and what we're trying to achieve. I've said the conscious mind has got to be aware, not just merely awake. We've discussed that, and I don't want to go into that again if you don't mind. In other words, the subconscious mind is awake when it's lightly touching the surface of the subconscious mind, but it's still not in control of everything, because it's still, because of the contact, subject to all the influences there, all the currents, all the ghosts of the past, the guilts, the compulsions, the energies. And these energies come from being a reflection of your environment. See, that's all you are, just a reflex of your environment. You react, you feel, you think. You think, you feel, you act. You grow that way. And people die is because the real person, when you react, you feel, you think, you see, you react, you feel, you think, you take your identity, you take who you are from what motivates you. If you love Hitler, well, you become a Nazi. That's what you become. You become what you love and what you hate. Those emotions are still reactive emotions. Whether you love something or hate something, you still take on its influence. See? Even people become like their dogs and cats. Weird. But you see it over, and men and women begin to become like each other. Yeah. See? And even though they didn't look like each other when they were married, they look like each other. They also look like hell, but that's what it means to look like each other. So I'll get away off onto a different subject if I'm not careful. We're trying now to form a new identity. the Bible says something very beautiful. He says, if any man be in Christ, he be a new creature. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye therefore transformed by the renewing of your mind from within. You know, casting down vain thoughts and imaginations. How do you do that? How do you get control of your thoughts and your imagination? How do you find this state where you can cast down vain thoughts and imagination and take control of your emotion? How can you be stronger than the environment? After all, you are a material object, you see, subject to the environment that begat you. See, on a big ball floating in space. I mean, after all, how can you be stronger? I can understand the moon being pulled away from the Earth gravitational pull by a greater heavenly body. But that moon is locked into the Earth until some other heavenly body stronger than the Earth can pull it away. It cannot pull itself away any more than you can overcome the influence of your environment. And people cannot, of their own, pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. That's why in religious parlance you need something called salvation. But to save you from the influence of the world, see, which creates in you the image and likeness of it, which becomes you, which is the conflict you experience as a human being, not being yourself, that you were meant to be when you were born. See? So, the secret of it then is been hidden through the ages. And here it is. You ready? If you'd like to do a little meditation with me, you can keep your eyes open if you like, because I'll have to go through this whole spiel myself. I'll close my eyes because I can see it clearer when I do it. Better than seeing your ugly faces. Puts me off. No, I'm just kidding. The whole idea then is to sit down quietly and close your eyes. And what you want to do is to reverse the electrical flow. In other words, you react, you feel, you think. You think, you feel, you act. But you're just a reflex of environment. Guilty as charged. The electrical charge, anyway. So, you realize that you can't go through life being that reflex, because it's not you that's growing, but something else that's making a home in you, posing as you. But the real you, which was meant to know the realer you, it groans. And you want to come home again. You want to start to be who you were meant to be from the very and serve, of course, the purpose for which you created. You're never going to serve the purpose for which you created if you keep reacting and becoming in the image and likeness of the world around you, because in that form you can only serve the dark side of the force. You can't help but do wrong, because you're not your own person. See? You're separated from who you might have been and could have served. So, you close your eyes, and this is how we do it. To every person who seeks and wants to know the truth, this method works. If you're a person that's not sincere, don't even try, because you'll just get caught up with Roy Masters and his techniques. And I'm telling you, there'll be hell to pay. You'll be hypnotic. What I'm going to tell you right now will become hypnotic, because you will not be able to do it unless your heart is pure. It's impossible. You'll still be a person who doesn't want to come back to reality, who simply uses me and my teachings for another high. Oh, doesn't he have a beautiful voice? Ain't he handsome? You know, something like that. You know. I just love you, Mr. Meisters. You know, it's they worship me and they get a feeling from me, and they've got their religiousness, you see, like most people do, I'm sorry to say. But that's not my purpose. My purpose is to free you from me, to be the extension of what I am in myself. Because we can all have, there's like a big satellite in the sky, and it's like a TV station. You know, a TV station can have an image in Tokyo, and it can have it in Los Angeles. It could be the same person. You're seeing the same person from the same studio. You see, if you're tuned into the right station. And we have a big satellite in the sky, and every TV can receive that image. So it is that my nature and my understanding can be the same as your understanding if you're tuned in, you see, like that. We're both receiving the same signals, and we look at each other through those same eyes. See? It's more complicated than that, but we have his nature and his spirit in us, and we recognize one another. I can always tell where people are coming from. There's no way in the world, for example, that you can fool me as to that if you're a man of God, or if you're a true meditator, or a guru or a teacher, no matter how holy you look, there's no way in the world you can fool me. You know, let me give you an example of that. When the sperm goes up that stream to meet the egg, the ovum, they don't talk language because the head of the sperm has some kind of enzymes on it. Forgive me, I don't know the medical name. But there's a chemical language, and it breaks down the resistance, or it enables it to lock in and to penetrate the ovum and unite. See, any other foreign object doesn't have that chemical message. So therefore the chemical message, even animals sniff each other, and they have, you see, there's a certain scent. They don't have language. They can't fool each other. Two animals of the same species don't usually mate. There's a certain, well, it's not truth. It's their truth, that the chemical messenger on the head of that sperm, see, is, well, the door of the ovum opens up to receive that, and it's a lock. It fits a key. And I can tell you that if you start to speak truth when you've learned it from a book, I can tell you that you're not coming from the Spirit. I can tell it because it's an energy that you put out, and you're not going to open my door. A lot of you go to church, and you see these preachers and ministers spouting the gospel. See, you can see their body language, like Reverend Falwell and Shula. You can see the pride and the way they speak and carry it, and they've rehearsed it the night before. It's not coming from the same Spirit, see? I haven't rehearsed anything. I even forgot what I was going to talk about. But the point is, see, so what I want you to understand now is that there's a saying in the Orient, every man is female before God. He has to allow himself to be penetrated. But you have to come. You have to come to where that light is, to allow yourself to be penetrated. If you don't want to be penetrated, you stay lost in your thoughts, caught up in emotion, escaping always. See, but the love of truth, well, if you have the truth, the love of truth, the truth is in you without even realizing it. That's why you can recognize me. You can recognize me only because the love of truth is in you, and when I come from me to you, I can penetrate you in a sense. Because you see, it's nothing to do with words or cleverness. It's just a spirit, and you can sense me, and you let me in. Whatever is in me is not me. See? And as you let me in, you're not really letting me in. You're letting what is in me into yourself from within. Now here's what I'm trying to get you to do with the meditation. When you're with me, you're meditating. When you're with me, you're in a state of consciousness that you've never been in before. But when I walk away, you start to sink down. You can't hold it. So I want you to hold that state when I walk away. And this is how we do it. Close your eyes. Now here we go. The meditation is on the cassette, so I may not be able to go into all the details of the actual exercise. I just want to show you the mechanics, what's happening when you do it, when you should elect to do it. You put your right hand by your side and become aware of the middle of your forehead right there. Don't look upwards, but just be conscious of the middle of your forehead. Now, it's like looking at the wall of a cave, and if you become conscious of that spot, a strange thing happens. It's like the TV set goes off and it's got those little colored speckles. No picture. You can take command of thought. Your mind doesn't go blank, but the tendency is for your mind, the picture, to keep coming back and to pull you into it, so that you're walking around in that daydream, half awake, half asleep, hypnotic state actually. See? And you find yourself daydreaming again. If you close your eyes, it's very hard to sit more than 1 second without daydreaming. So the idea is to work against the daydream. You've never done that before. You've always lost yourself in it. You've always surrendered to the dream because it helped you to take away guilt. It helped you to fulfill dreams and ambitions. Helped you to forget reality. Helped you to think you were something you were not. You know, white knight in shining armor catching bombs and hand grenades in midair and throwing them back at the enemy. And and executing people, being judge and jury, executioner. Anyway, what you need to do is get out of that state, to come back to the reality. There's another way of knowing things other than your thinking, which contains culture and memories, some false, some true, but nothing you could put together with any intelligence, and nothing you can have any control of until you stand back and become fully awake, fully aware from after being awake. So the meditation, you must be very careful not to go off to sleep, because if you fall asleep, you wake up a fool. If you're a fool before you went to sleep, you wake up a fool. But meditation, if you become more awake, and a person who emerges from meditation is more wise, because he's more conscious, he's more aware. And he carries into that normal state, when he comes back to his normal condition, the information of the total objective state that he holds for a few moments. He's immersed in that reality, and he takes on the knowledge of that reality, the spiritual knowledge, which he as a human being is meant to be composed of. And it translates into feelings and emotions and thoughts, into understanding. You will know, you'll have intellectual knowledge. My intellect is working fine. But this knowledge I'm speaking to you doesn't come from my intellect. I never got this from books. I haven't cracked a book. I write them. Then I tell people not to read books in my books. Put myself in business all the time. You see, but the whole idea is to get you to the state where you can know without having to learn. Discover. And that is learning. But discovery makes you real person. For example, you can build an airplane out of knowledge with works of the hands, glass, steel, science, but you can't build a human being out of that. Human being needs understanding from within. Airplanes need assemblage from the outside. Mechanical laws and rules and skills and arts. But we all want to be remolded from within. You have to be still, separate from the restlessness of your thinking and your ambitions. So here you close your eyes. The whole idea now is to become conscious of your thoughts, okay, as though you're watching a cave, a spot on the cave wall. Now be aware of your right hand and shift your attention from one finger to another, as though you're looking through the middle of your forehead. Just watch your thoughts, and watch your thoughts trying to pull you away, and then be aware of your right hand. Right hand, very important. Tell you why later on. And just be aware that it exists. So you never noticed your hand before, so I'm asking you to be aware of it. Now, watch the thoughts that try to pull you away from being aware of your hand through the middle of your forehead. Just watch it, see? Make a connection between here and there. And the more you be aware of your hand, you can feel your hand warm and tingling. And if you can keep your mind in the present, not in the past, not in the future, but if you can keep your mind in the present, that flow will be uninterrupted. And as you stay in the moment, looking through the middle of your forehead with those speckles of, watching the thoughts going by, like you're like a general on a grandstand and all the troops are going by, the thoughts don't go with the troops. Don't go with the flow of the river. Just stand there and let the thoughts go by. But they'll try to pull you in and make you one of them. Stand there, come back to the moment, be aware of your hand, and as you become aware, as you exercise, that's why it's called a meditation exercise, you feel the hand getting warm and tingling. If your hand stops getting warm, if you forget to be aware of the middle of your forehead, you'll find yourself daydreaming again. What he said, what I should say to him, if he says that to me, I say that to him, or what I'm going to cook for breakfast tomorrow for my husband. All nonsense. Pull back, be aware of the middle of the forehead. What you're doing is creating an objective state. You're pulling back. You'll find because there's only two places to be, either lost in your thoughts or in this other realm where there's truth and love and energy and light. It's another intelligence within you, a ground of being, I call it, and you'll know it's something has happened. See, the Bible says we know not how to pray, see, but the Father knows what to give us when He knows. He says something to do with, we do so with sighs and groans too difficult for words. He responds to our needs with sighs and groans too deep for words. That's what happens when you meditate. You start to breathe deeply. Don't breathe deeply perfectly. Don't do like the yogas do. Don't do it. Don't go. Breathe deep, they teach you. Don't do that, because you're aerating, you're oxygenating your brain and giving yourself a hypnotic illusion that something's happening. If anything's going to happen, it's going to be happening because something of the spirit is going to impart itself to you. Just like when you get a shock by someone's mean presence. It electrifies your whole body, every atom. When you find yourself in this realm, you're going to feel maybe shock. You're going to find a deep breathing, it's like you're standing in front of someone who's very important and powerful, and you're breathing deeply because you're afraid, and you're reacting. Your whole being is going to react. Your breathing will go deep, or then sometimes shallow, see? But what you're doing is you're creating a flow of energy this way, toward the world, see? And creating a force field around you. Nothing bad can get in that force field. Nothing. You will be able to communicate good to everybody, but nobody bad can penetrate that, because the energy is flowing this way. When you lived in your other state, the energy was flowing this way. You react, you feel, you think. But this way you don't react. You're dead to sin. You're dead to the environment. People will think you're dead. They can't control you anymore. It frightens them, because the spirit of this world is used to having its way by getting you to react and to sending their electrical messages and suggestions up to your brain. See, well, now you've disconnected them. And it isn't that you're not emotionally shut off like an invalid, like a person who's a mental patient in a hospital. So all the mechanisms shut down because it's too painful to live emotionally. No, you've got your emotions all right, but they do not come or flow from the environment. They flow from within you, carrying all the messages of how to be a human being. The others carry messages of how to be an animal and how to excuse it. If I talk to you on a telephone in New York, if someone cuts the electricity, the wires could be intact, but you can't hear me. I'm talking to myself in the room. Well, when you were emotional and when you lived sunk in your thoughts and emotions, reacting to your environment, you see, when you did that, when you lived like that, then you were connected like to Ma Bell. See? Someone pushed your buttons and dialed your number. Someone had your number, and you reacted, and you could hear in the subconscious what the instructions of how to behave were to be, and you did. You couldn't help yourself. The techniques of influencing you are legion. There's no way. It's beyond your consciousness to comprehend. Except when you meditate, you'll see it all. You can only see it when you're objective. You can't see it when you're involved. You can't see the forest for the trees. So when you're completely immersed in your emotions, other people were talking to your brain and you were responding accordingly without anything original. You were dramatizing the wills on earth as it is in hell. See? But when you flow the other way, nothing can influence you. It's like you died. As far as they're concerned, you're a possum, you're playing possum. They think you're cold, they think you're weird, because people don't love you anymore because they can't control you. They love you, they reward you with give you a brownie button when they can control you, when you react like a little puppy dog. See? When they make you see them the way they want you to see them, not the way they really are. But now you're there looking at people like that little child, returning as that little child, with that innocence and the control and the power and this energy flowing towards them, and they can feel this influence. They can feel your energy field, because the energy that comes from within you is different from the energy that comes from other people. People have an aura around them. Even a leaf has an aura around them. See, human beings have an aura around them. They put off an energy field. And you can actually people, when you're around people, you can feel them, the energy like radar, looking for a chink in your arm. Have you ever felt that? Or creating that chink by getting you to do something mean to you so you get upset. See? Well, now, they send that signal out. They can't find one. And they panic, because the only thing that these people have ever known in their life is the success of getting other people to react to them, to create something in their image, even as they have been created in somebody else's image. It's a dog-eat-dog world, you see. The only way they can control people or be in control of anything is to throw something else out of control. So if they can't throw you out of control, they panic. Their courage melts. I tell you, you can be this tall and fight Goliath that tall, and the message is unmistakable. They come against you, and suddenly they feel that there's no fear, there's no anger, there's no response. They feel the spirit of the other world. They feel it, and it penetrates them. They either become a better human being, or they run like hell to something they can control. They become violent. They use up all their energies trying to get you to react. And it's a very painful experience to be confronted by somebody you can't master, but especially someone who doesn't want to master you. See, the secret is then, you won't have to try to do unto others before they do it to you. There's no need to, because in your old life, you had two choices. You were either subject to the beast, or you evolved, you took strength and compensated, and became meaner and stronger than them. But you weren't happy either way, were you? So you either had to manipulate and out-manipulate, or be manipulated. That's the only choice you've got. It's not human either way. Now you have a new way of doing things. Sit quietly, be still, and know the truth. It's always been said that way, but no one's ever taught you the right way. Not only the people of the Bible said, be still and know, but Blaise Pascal, a philosopher, once said, I perceive that all of the illnesses and all the troubles in the world come from man not being able to sit still in a room. Why can't you sit still? Because you're afraid to sit still. You're afraid to see what you are. You're afraid of dying to yourself. Because when you sit still, you give up selfishness. You make a commitment to another world. You take on a new dimension, a new life, a new energy. But only those people who are willing, only one kind of person that's willing to do that, one who's ready to commit his life to something other than his own selfishness. In religious parlance, they say, giving your life to Christ. Well, after all, God created you, and the devil recreated you. The forces on this earth. And we discuss these forces, man-woman relationship. There is no hell like a woman scorn, that sort of thing. We'll discuss this in the future, but I hope this evening you got a little glimpse into what I mean by meditation, and I know a lot of you here in this room, you have these materials. And those of you listening or watching, viewing this program, please write to the Foundation of Human Understanding, and I can show you how to meditate, and it won't offend your religious beliefs, because it's the essence of what religion really is to be still and acquire. After all preachers and rabbis should, if their heart is pure, lead you like doctors. They should, if a doctor has done his work correctly, you don't need him anymore. He should labor not for you not to need him. But it's not true in this world. The purpose of government is more government. The purpose of medicine is not you, but to be more medicine. You see, more religion. But more religion means less people. More people means less religion. What we need is the spirit of the truth in every human being. And the people who in power are keeping you from this knowledge, because they like their robes, and they like their riches, and they like their power. I'd like to be called rabbi, minister, reverend. They like all that stuff. They like to play God. See? They're human. And the wrong people are in charge of this world, I'm afraid. That's why it's such a bloody mess. So I would propose to give you back to yourself. And that's what I want you to do. Please join us next week. And thank you very much for being with me this evening.
The Foundation of Human Understanding teaches an observation exercise, often called meditation, which permits you to become objective toward your problems and allows your heartaches, bad habits, fears, and anxieties to be completely eliminated from your life without effort on your part. Until you have begun to practice this exercise, much of what you see and hear on the following program may be shocking and upsetting to you. But if you will listen calmly and with an open mind, you may discover the key to the peace of mind and joy for which you've been searching all of your life. And now, from the foundation of human understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Welcome once again to the program, How to Control Your Negative Emotions. And this evening I want to talk about right, wrong, good, evil, whatever happened to sin. What is sin? Does anybody know what sin is? Is sin what the Pope says it is or it isn't? Is it something you invent? What is sin? Does anybody know what sin is? Would you like me to give you a description? I mean, you probably read the Bible all day long. I mean, many of you have read the Bible and still haven't found the part what tells you what sin is. It's everything that's not of faith. It's sin. Now, what is faith? Well, I spent 2 sessions, excuse me, talking about meditation and how to become objective to your thoughts so that you're not controlled by your lower nature. So that you can move and have your being by another energy called love. Truth and love. Everybody who has not found this state of consciousness, awareness, rather than just awakeness like the animals awake. Remember I said animals are awake and they're asleep. Human beings are asleep. They can also be very deeply asleep. They can also be even deeper asleep. And some people are afraid to go to sleep because they're afraid they fall into a big dark hole. Because somehow the subconscious mind opens up. And it's almost like a bottomless pit if you've ever seen it. A terrible blackness. There are different levels of consciousness you can descend into. Conversely, there are different levels of consciousness you can ascend into. And I really don't know how aware I can be. All I know is that I'm aware, and I'm aware that I can be more aware. And more aware I will be. But when I become more aware, I'll look back and realize, by that which is making me more aware, realize that I can even be more aware. It's endless. It's an endless growth, like a giant sequoia, redwood tree. The only thing is that the big tree falls down. The only reason why it dies is because it gets too big for its britches and falls down. But in other words, as long as it can grow, it lives. 5,000 years, 4,000 years, God knows how long. Human beings can live as long as they can grow. So as long as they can move into the truth, through each veil. When a man is moving into sin, let's say into woman, and then woman becomes the dimension of his growth. It becomes who he is. He gets into a deeper and deeper and deeper, and the more he knows her, the more he wants to know her. Because then he knows himself, because that's what it becomes of him. He becomes himself. The more you know this other self, the more it becomes you. So the man wants to get into a woman deeper and deeper and deeper, or into drugs deeper and deeper and deeper. Why? Because the more you know that other side, experience it, the more it becomes you. And the more it becomes you, the more conscious you would need to be, the more you want to be. And the more you have to travel towards that source of illumination or love. Of course, there's a dark side and there's a bright side of this thing. There are 2 sides of the coin. One movement is down towards illusion of reality and being, death as life, and the other is moving towards reality, away from the false reality. Now, the trouble is with this concept is that we're dealing with illusion and reality seems like illusion, and illusion can seem like reality, depending upon the inclination of the soul. If you love, now I can't tell you what this is. Now I must tell you, I'm not in the business of making a person the way I'm about to describe. But I know, ever since I can remember, I didn't know exactly what it was I was loving, but when I first became conscious, aware, more than awake. I was always been aware more than awake, because I see everybody is just awake, more or less asleep, hypnotized. The first thing I wanted to know is, what am I here for? Okay? And I got a strange response to that. It's as if something said to me, don't worry. Don't worry. He must have been Jewish. But it was something that reassured me without words. I was comforted by knowing that I would know in time. That was good enough for me. I believed. See? So I've been moving, as I hope you will, moving towards the realization and the actualization from realization. I mean, in my life, faith without works is dead. If you don't do what you know, you don't do what you're inspired to do, what you realize is right to do. And the knowledge of right and good comes from God. We don't know God, but God knows us. The only way we know God, and that we know that God knows us, is we understand things, and we realize things that other people are dead to. Well, at least they seem dead to. They're not quite dead to it, because they are threatened by us knowing it. So you have two types of people in the world: those who love the truth, and they love the truth, and without realizing it, their heart yearns, longs. See, their heart yearns and longs for this truth. Therefore, that is compatible. I wonder if I can express, and I may not be accurate in this description, and maybe some electronic engineer will call me up and tell me I'm all wet, but you know, when you're in an airplane and you have radio signals, I know you got one set of signals that goes through the air, and you got one goes to ground. Isn't that correct? If I'm not mistaken. Well, where's the ground in the airplane? The ground is the airplane. The airplane itself is the ground, but it's not in the ground. But somehow, even though the airplane is not connected to the ground, yet the ground, the earth and the airplane somehow are connected, and it acts as a ground. See? So, I say that the yearning, the longing to know the purpose for which you were created, has its ground in original being, even though you're not there yet. I hope the analogy is good, but at least it, you know, for those of you ignorant of electronics, great. It's a great. It works, even if it isn't true. But you see the point. I'm just stretching things just to make a point. And that everybody who loves the truth knows it. And you know, when you hear me speak, that I know it. People say to me, Mr. Masters, where'd you get your knowledge from? Now, one person could just be in awe, hear me spouting all these truths, being eloquent and not missing a trick, and they could think, well, they don't know the truth, but, you know, I'm bigger and stronger and I got more money than he is. He figures out, you know, it looks religious enough for him to join and become religiousized. You know, to inspire him, I might, you know, kingdom of heaven is like the net that the fisherman threw in the ocean, and he brought up all kinds of fish, big and small, and somebody threw back. I throw that one back. You see what I mean? I dredge him up. But there are some people who hear me and say, Mr. Masters, genuine, where do you get your knowledge from? Where this truth? I said, well, the answer to that is, how do you know that I'm telling you the truth? Well, that means they have it also. See, if you can recognize that I have the truth, and you never heard the truth before, doesn't it mean that the truth that you've been looking for, you already have? You just never heard anyone confirm it. Now, what do I do with you? My good wants for your good. And so I run around confirming what you already know. Now, if it's news to you, if it's something you've never heard and you believe it, because I'm stronger and bigger and smarter and wiser and richer than you are, and you are in awe of me, because you'd believe anything, 1 and 1 makes 3, under those conditions, then you're in big trouble. I grew up with a friend. He's not really a friend, I suppose. My mother and her friend grew up as children, and they married and they had children. My mother had me and she had Ronnie. And when we were young, we were kind of friendly. We had fun together. And he's kind of a nice guy, but in my opinion, he's shallow. As we grew older, we grew to be what we were really like, and we looked at each other one day. And him and his shallowness, and me with my whatever I have. And we were talking one day about truth and how you know it. And I said to him, well, Ronnie, how do you know what your mother told you was true about the 10 Commandments? That we were talking about right and wrong, Judaism, that sort of thing. He said, well, my mother told me. That's how I know. I said, what? You believe it? If your mother told you that 1 and 1 made 3, would you believe it? He's like, yes, I would. Now, I want you to try this emphasized, ladies and gentlemen. Whenever you get into a little dialogue about truth and how we know what truth is, just try that one on for size. Ask the person, and don't be surprised at the answer. How do you know that 1 and 1 makes 2? What's the right answer for that? Does anybody know the right answer for that? I mean...
Because you see that it is so.
Right. You see that it is so. If anybody asks you, I'm asking you now, are you awake, are you asleep right now? What is the answer? Well, some people are very suspicious. They won't give you an answer. What do you mean by that? They come up with all kinds of suspicious behavior. I said, no, look. Are you awake? Are you asleep right now? Well, I guess I'm awake. It's still not sure. They don't want to be trapped into anything. No, I mean, are you sure that you're awake? I guess no, I don't mean guess you are. Are you awake right now? Yes, I am. All right, how do you know? They don't know how they know. He said it. I can see that I am. That all truth is self-evident. That's what your Constitution tells you. And the only way you're going to know what truth is because you know it for yourself. Now that's the only truth that's worth knowing. Now we've got to be very careful with knowing the truth before your time. Other people preaching to you the truth before your time and having it shoved down your throat so that you end up with the same truth but from the other guy. In other words, you know it and you think you know it, but only because you think you know. You know it by way of thinking, but not by way of discovering. We must be very, very careful. We're talking about evil masquerading as good will teach you too much truth too soon. Will also give you too many material things. Your mother trying to be good to you will, for whatever reason, your father trying to buy your love and not wanting you to suffer like he suffered, whatever the reason. Buying your respect will give you too much and rob you of discovering how to get that for yourself. He's playing God, in other words, and make you totally dependent. Welfare, deadly. Won't go into that right now. I don't want to make a political thing out of this. Welfare does that. They don't care about the people. They want the people weak and dependent on the handout. I always say Tip O'Neill was a liberal conservative. He was liberal with your money, but conservative with his own. See what I mean? He had a lot of money to make people dependent on and get power. You breed more and more of those people, and they elect you to give them more, to cater to their selfishness. So you breed a low class of people, regardless of race, color, or creed. a very low class of people that eventually he becomes the dictator of, the socialist dictator of. So watch out for that, the love of people. But anyway, too much truth too soon? We're talking about now evil in the disguise of good. Too much religion too soon? Too much education too soon? Why do you think the kids are committing suicide? They're on dope and pot, pressure, and teaching them nonsense, something that's not relevant to their development, something that doesn't run parallel to their own needs. See, if I want the child to learn, first of all, I have to decide whether that child, it's interesting to that child, or whether it's relevant to its needs, or whether it's too much too soon. I can't give him algebra when he doesn't know what 1 and 1 is. I can't force him to unfold. You take a petal, the flowers, the petals of a flower, and unfold them before it's time, you're going to pull the petals off. It's got to unfold in its own time. Those who love you will let you unfold in your own time. So yes, we'll just take a.
I want to know where sin comes in. If you're not right, does that mean that you're in sin?
Well, that disconnected me just a little bit.
Okay.
Of course, if you're not right, it means you're in sin. But we're trying to decide what is sin in a few minutes. First of all, everything that doesn't. Okay, I'm just finished with that, gentleman. Everything that doesn't come flowing from within you as a result of your own discoveries is dead. The letter killeth. Even though it's the true words, it's true about the truth. See, now, compare this. If you were a flower sitting in the sunlight, the light of the sun is the truth to you. The chlorophyll in your leaves understand the messages of the sun. Sucks all the life in and nice healthy body, right? You take the flower out of the sun, put it in the shade. Now you can spray it, you can inject it, you can powder it, you can fertilize it, you can do a warm dance, you can pray. The flower won't come back. Only one thing it needs the truth. Put it back in the sun, it understands that. It's made of the sun. Now we children are the children of the light. And we need the light. Our soul grows, whoever we are, well, if you look at the light of the sun, it's everything to this world. Everything moves and has its being because of everything physical. It has messages. It makes flowers grow. It decides the seasons and the climates and the cycles of life and death. It decides life. It decides death itself. I mean, in the desert where there's no water, the sun is death. See, it decides everything. The sun shining simply has a fantastic message to it. It's everywhere at the same time. It's all things to everything. It's everywhere. Omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient in a worldly sense. It's the same thing with the light of truth in ourselves. Human beings are creatures of the light. And we can only grow from the light and from the light. Now, what purpose is it for anything to take us from that? By all its various forms of subterfuge, like religious pressure, seductions of various kinds, teaching us to be ambitious, to think we're God, to have put money before what's right, see, to give us too much too soon, to spoil us, to make us dependent on whatever it is it has in mind for us. What purpose does it have? We have good and we have evil. And there is an evil in this world, a dark force, an intelligence. And it seeks to take us from the light because it has no life of its own, it being sort of spiritual death. It has no form of its own. It has to steal the form, in a manner of speaking. give you an example of what I've said. Talking about a flower in the sun. The flower is called an independent. It's independent because it lives from light 92 million miles away. Everything else, the plant eaters, everything else, the caterpillars, they all live on the plant. See? So they're dependent creatures. Plants are independent. They don't depend on anything in this world. They depend on something not of this world. And everything of this world is dependent on it. Well, let's take another form of plant. Mushrooms, toadstools. That's a plant too. It can't live in the light. It doesn't do very well in the light. But it lives on the stored light of the bodies of other creatures. Everything in this world, there's an equivalent to what's going on in ourselves. You see? So what it has to do with the spirit of this dark world embodies itself, recreates itself in its own image by something called temptation. Did you want to? Yes, I don't mind taking a question.
Yes, I've heard you speak about the pod people. I wonder if you could go into that.
Well, I'm
as
cut-
you're working into that.
Yes, I am.
And in the movie, the body snatchers,
Yeah.
they were aware that of the few people who were left, who were real humans. They were aware, and they tried.
To tell the others.
Yes,
And then nobody listens.
because they were all
I
snatched.
feel like I'm the principal actor in the body snatchers, because I'm saying, hey, look, they're not real people out there. Their bodies got snatched. They've, somehow the person that sits there is made out of the debris of the old one. It looks like it, but it's a different. It's a fake. And that's what we're talking about now. There's something that goes metamorphosis that goes on. There's an evil opposed to good, and the purposes of good and evil, and the moral of it, I won't go into this evening. But just briefly to touch on it, very briefly, there can't be an up without a down, a left without a right, a beauty without ugliness. It can't be. You see. The Bible says there's no virtue, there's no claim to virtue without temptation. So something called temptation, the opposite of good, see, tries our souls, see, tries our commitment. And if we are successful in triumphing over it, or finding salvation, so we might, then the encounter strengthens our spirits. The evil serves the purpose for good. Just like danger produces courage. Could you have courage without danger? Is it possible? You can't build a muscle without resistance to the muscle. So there's a purpose in evil being what it is. And whether God created it or not is another subject. I'm sure He did, because He created everything, even evil. And the thing is that if you respond to that evil, you give your life to it, and it becomes stronger. See, life flows out of you, and you become weaker, and it becomes stronger. And the interreaction between it is that it becomes you, and you become it. In other words, how does it work? The classic vampire, you see the vampire bite the victim, and something of the vampire goes into the victim, and then the victim, after he's been drained sufficiently, dies. But when he comes back to life, he comes back to life as a vampire himself. They call that the undead. Now I tell you that this is what you find in our society everywhere. Psychic vampires everywhere. And they have a way of biting, tempting you, teasing you, seducing you, upsetting you from out of your moral boundary. In other words, there's a moral boundary of your consciousness. Remember, we described that in the last few programs. So there's an inner world, there's an outer world, and I say now there's a perimeter, like East Germany and West Germany. If you're in East Germany, you're under that system, and you have to do as you're told there. You come under the influence. In West Germany, you come under a different system. It's doing its best to try to pull you into East Germany, trying to pull you, lure you there, so it can take possession of your life and operate through you. It's more than that. They take your life, because the evil of people, once a person has been bitten, once a person has been tempted, he gives his life over to that which has seduced him. And it seduces him, or seduces you, for the purpose of taking your life, because it has no life of its own. It's a mushroom. It's a mushroom burger. See? And then you feel drained, and you take on its identity. Eventually you die as a real person, and you come back to life. See? In a sense, you come back to life not as a person that you were created to be when you were born. You come back to life with the nature of that thing within it, the nature of it within you. And you also have to aggravate the life out of everybody around you. Tease, seduce, upset, get reactions, take life from, kill in order to live. Cannibalism is the lowest form of that. Not only do we psych each other out and drain each other of energy and live off other people's dying, because our own death must be made alive through their death. Death to the living, life to the dead. That's the way it is in this world. That's why there's so much crime, and so why it's so powerful. And that's the reason why you must find the truth that makes you free. This book, called The Satan Principle, you'll find very interesting. We don't talk about this book very much because the title's a little scary, but it shows you how to protect yourself psychologically from these forces. But you have to understand them in order to deal with them, so don't be scared. You can't fight something you don't understand. But the minute you start to understand it, and you start to look at it objectively, meditatively, you'll see that that state in itself, remember I said about the dream? When you wake up from a dream, it has no more power over you. The nightmare has no more power over you. Learn to follow the instructions in this book, and you'll know the truth that makes you free. Right to the Foundation of Human Understanding. It's $8, $10 including mailing if you want to write, those of you who are viewing this program this evening. And we'll continue this thought with a lot of questions and answers in our next broadcast. Thanks for listening. Well, welcome once again to the program. We were talking about good and evil, right and wrong, and always listening to your conscience. Always let your conscience be your guide, like Jiminy Cricket. And you saw what happened to Pinocchio because he didn't listen. That's a wonderful story, by the way. Marvelous story. If you haven't seen it lately, it's not for kids. Kids don't understand it. They're not aware enough. They love it because it has an essence, or very often missing in their parents. But everybody loves that story, but nobody knows why they love it. You love the truth if you love the story. You may love the fantasy of it, but it has a very deep moral to it, that if you don't listen to your conscience, if you don't develop a strong conscience, and the spirit of conscience doesn't become strong in you, you will be impregnated by evil. It's very simple. You either have the spirit of good in you, which comes from resisting, wrestling with, encountering, overcoming the world, so you grow strong in grace and wisdom, or failing that, you start to die. You take on the identity of that which has conquered you. Like the classic vampire. You die, you get bitten, the nature of the spirit that bites you is inside you, and you come back to life as a vampire. And you notice, if you look around in your society today, how many people are violated, how many men violate their daughters and beat up their wives, how many women seduce and get pleasure out of making a man crawl like a worm for her pleasure and approval. How many people are addicted to drugs and alcohol. How many human beings are exploited through their weakness, and the weakness through being exploited becomes weaker, and the strength of the exploiters becomes stronger. You see, if you take two babies when they're born, they're pretty much equal. You know, most of them are. I'm not speaking about physical defects. Let's take two babies pretty much equal. But as life goes by, one of them, if you put two human beings, two men in a prison cell, one will become dominant. You see the Lord of the Flies? The story of children left alone on a desert island. I don't remember all the details of it, how cruel some children became, how some became slaves and gave up their life, the substance of their existence, to the tyrants, to the strong, and they became weak. You find this all over the world, in all nations, ever since the beginning of man on the earth, in human relationships with governments, in families, in factories, in offices, a dog-eat-dog world. Something becomes unbalanced. Something happens in one child. One starts to get weak and give up something, and this becomes the strength of the other. And the one, when it becomes the strength of the other, he becomes addicted to being strong that way. See? Because that's his life. Remember I said the toadstool, the mushroom, it lives off diseased plants, not healthy ones. But in this case, in this particular example, we have a living intelligence that operates through human beings. And when it finds a home in one of you, one more ambitious than the other, see, the more ambitious are the one who have that strong spirit of manipulation and cleverness. They have an understanding of human weakness. Sometimes when, you know, my wife, I know she's all women, most women anyway, and it seems like whenever I listen to women talk to their kids, when I hear women husbands tell me about their problems with their wives, and women tell me about their problems with their husband, but as I hear them talk, it seems like all women have gone to the same school. And they never went to any school. They all know what to do to consolidate gain and control, and how to confuse and confound and manipulate and act dumb. See? And frustrate. All the tricks they know, all the seduction, all the men's weaknesses they know instinctively and how to play on them. And we went to school, and it seems as though in some people who are ambitious, for whatever reason, it centers itself, the spirit of that evil centers itself in the most ambitious. And they become most powerful. And the only reason why they become powerful is because they're able to seduce others, to dominate, to trap others outside their conscience, to make others doubt themselves, to make others respond to them, to their seductions. Get others to believe in them rather than believe in themselves. That's the same thing as doubting, see. Because you see, your whole life basically is a belief system. If you believe in somebody, if you doubt yourself, it means you've believed in somebody. If somebody makes you doubt yourself, if somebody pressures you and upsets you, the dominant person who's used to having his will and gathering his life from you by you falling to his will. He puts his will in you, and he takes his life, your life from you. See, and that his power, his will generates, it gathers strength from other people's weaknesses, like the tobacco companies and the drug lords of Colombia. They get their strength, their power, but look, it becomes more wicked, and the more wicked they become, they look for ways. Because once you, as a power lord in your home, your factory, Colombian drug lord, once you become dependent on other people's weaknesses, once you develop courage through making people cowards, then the only kind of courage you know comes from making people cowards. You have to dig deep into yourself for more knowledge of how to you must become more ruthless. See? For that power. You can't stop. So the evil is both ways. If you give up your strength to another person, if you give in to somebody's pressure, and you give up your conscience and you give up your principles for whatever reason, then then you are responsible not only for your own downfall, the fall to that person, to give up your strength to that person, but also you are responsible for the downfall of the tyrant to the state that he lives in, depending upon your miserable carcass. Yes, do you understand the point? You have actually, in other words, his strength is your weakness. And if you could ever learn to overcome this, whatever weakness this is, whatever weakness is that gravitates, causes you to give up energy and life to the conqueror, to the tyrant, you could both be all right. The balance would be restored. In a family situation, it's very much a prevalent scene. One becomes weaker, one becomes stronger. In a jail cell, one becomes the male and one becomes the female. One becomes submissive and one becomes dominant. And the dominance becomes tyranny and ultimate cruelty and sometimes murder. Because it's not enough to take the energy out of your miserable carcass. He has to kill you. Do you know why deer hunters like to go deer hunting? It's not because they need venison. It's because they like to kill. Why do they like to kill? Why does someone like to kill? Why do cannibals eat people? Why is it? Because you're taking the strength of your enemy. You're taking the virtues of your enemy and simulate him. It's gone that far with cannibals. And with deer hunters who don't really need to eat the venison, it's all right if you needed to eat the meat. But because, have you ever killed a chicken? If you've ever killed a chicken, you'll see that I can't kill one with my bare hands. I have to cut its head off or, shoot it from a distance. I'd much rather get it from the supermarket. Because when you kill it with your bare hands and it dies, you know what happens to you? Something comes from the body of that chicken into you. Have you ever felt that? It's a funny, icky feeling. See, if you're very sensitive, if you're not deadened to it, hardened to it, like butchers are, they won't let butchers be on juries. They're hardened to death, you see. But when you first experience that, is that when something dies, something leaves the body of that thing and clings to you. Clings to you. That's what people who are vampires, people who are bullies, they like to get that from you because they kill you each time you give up your principle, every time you cower, every time you wimp out. Yes.
Is this the way insurance companies get,
How do we get into that?
is this the way insurance company get their power by the people dying to them through?
No. There may be some connection, but it's not. It's kind of disconnected.
Well,
that
they
question.
seem to get more power because
Well,
more people believe in the system.
Yeah, well, if people had life assurance, they wouldn't need life insurance. I don't have any life insurance because the minute I start to get life insurance, then I've fallen away from life assurance. See, the trouble in our society, we are too safe. You got life insurance, you got Medicare, whatever it is. You got all kinds of insurances and assurances. We're looking for a safe environment. You see, we got Social Security. This is wrong, because if we are. Remember, I said on another program that the welfare system, how dangerous it is, and how when mothers spoil their children, that don't put a taproot down into themselves, that they become dependent on the handout of the parents, that they can't grow to be human beings, and then they in order to have anything at all in life, they have to do what the tyrant says, and then he gives them, a brownie button of approval. See, the sustenance. So we need more. The more assurance we have, the less doctors we will need. The more life assurance we have, the less we need life insurance. See, less social. Then that takes away the power of governments and the power of insurance companies and the powers of medicine, and all the powers that be would crumble to the earth if people could find that morality and strength to stand tall in the saddle for what they know is right, regardless of what they will lose. You see? Because why is it our young people can't say no to drugs? Why? Is it because the vampire has bitten them? See what it's saying? They are now no longer dependent upon the assurance of self-knowing. It's called confidence, coming from the Latin, is it Latin? Confideo. That's right, confideo, with fidelity, with God. The strength which comes from being with God, right? See, I've got confidence. My strength comes in my knowing. See, I know I'm right, and you can't make me doubt myself. Now, the children of today have been pulled away from their inner self. Pressures of school, pressures of church, wills of parents, wills of everybody. See? And they've been made to doubt themselves, and they're no longer who they were when they were born. And the self that was there is no longer there, but a self that has grown up there as a result of being bitten by the vampire, bitten by sin, by pressure, has grown up in it. Now you can't say no. You can't say no to drugs because you need the assurances that drugs have to offer. You can't say no to your friends because you don't want to hurt their feelings. See? You can't say no because you need the lie, which is their love. And the love, which is a lie. You see, you need their friendship. You need their presence. You need to lose yourself in the presence. In other words, have you seen the classic vampire where the woman, even though she's terrified of the vampire, she still bares her neck? Why does she bare her neck? Because once the seed has been planted in her, whatever is alive in her, the little embryonic vampire, see, once she's been bitten and seduced, she's no longer, she looks like a normal person, but she's looking a little weak lately, and everybody can't understand why she's so pale. She's not dead yet, but there's something inside, the alien is alive in her. And this alien has to bear, it has to experience the very thing that caused it to exist in that person in the first place. It has to be bitten again so that the alien can be more alien, to take its identity. The human being, in order for that alien to grow, now the alien now has control over the person and forces the person, compels. It's the compelling force now. It's the strongest influence inside the person. Because once the alien gets inside, remember, you react to something outside. You react. You overreact. It's like being bitten. It gets inside you because you've responded and been pulled away from what you know is right. And now you enter into the world of what is wrong. See? Now the thing that seduced you, traumatized you, gets inside you. And now it exists. And now it exists to exist more, to complete itself. Now it becomes a pleasure, where you used to be terrified, horrified, you'd run from the vampire, but now you're still in terror, but still now you're drawn. It's a mystery. You're drawn to the very things that are destroying you. You're drawn to the drugs. You're drawn to the wrong kind of friends. Because the wrong in you can only be more by sinning with, see, involving itself, opening itself to the wrong in that person. So that's why the children can't say no, because your children today are no longer Americans. They are captives of the Colombian drug lords. And the peer group pressure is simply a dog-eat-dog system with the same hierarchy at the top, a military chain of command. Each person being bitten, turning around, the only way they can get life is to take it from somebody else. When you take it from somebody else, you have to corrupt, you have to seduce a person to cross the threshold of consciousness, of conscience, and give up their conscience. Because if you don't get a person to give up their conscience, they won't die. And if they don't die, you don't live. See? But now the person dies, but when he dies as a real person, but he comes alive as something like you, who turns around and in order to live has to seduce and find another victim. You do see the point? Yes.
Why does it seem as though I can only keep making it smaller and smaller, but I can't get it out of me?
What's that? The alien identity inside?
Yeah, sure.
Give it time. There'll come a time, if you starve it, if you love the light, which I'm sure you do, right? And you meditate, and you're coming slowly towards the light, the light starts to shine inside you and starts to take control over you. See? And the light begins to take control of you in a sense, even though you're not perfect yet and you're not completely purged, a process has begun. Instead of the alien being in control of you and making you sin, bare your neck, to give up your blood, to know who you are. See? That's what the soul is more important than the body, whether it's good or evil. That's why people will smoke cigarettes through a hole in their throat. They will have sex, unsafe sex, when you know what safe sex is. There's no such thing. But anyway, even though they say, I don't want to have sex like that, it's having a shower with an overcoat on, see, a raincoat on. They want the pleasure. They want to emerge with the source of their corruption, their corrupter. Their corrupter is lover. What corrupts you, you must go back to for reinforcement of the corrupt identity. So you have to sin. You have to sin means you have to involve yourself, escape from reality, and get deeper into the thing that caused you to be what you were. You have to come back to your origin, closer and closer and closer, until you're fully formed, you see, as a living ghoul rather than a living soul. You see what I'm saying? So, but what's happening in you is that when you become more of a, comes close to the light, something new enters you. Something new enters you and starts to take shape in you. And instead of you responding to peer pressure in the old system of becoming who you are, which you couldn't say no to before because you needed the reinforcement of what you were when you were wrong. It was the only way you knew how to be, right? So now you can say no to these things, and it's like dying. The old self starts to die because you're no longer under the spirit control of the dark side. You're under the spirit control of the bright side. And as you say no to things, you find you can now when you love truth and you give up selfishness. You see, selfish people can never give up drugs. See, because the selfish person's life is through the sin of drugging the reality away. You follow that? So you start to say no to yourself, and the thing within you starts to wither and starts to die. And one evening you'll be sitting quietly meditating. All of a sudden you'll have a shudder, and something strange will happen, and something will come out of you. And you'll have a little mini exorcism all on your own, and the thing will be gone. I had one 8 years ago.
But is that the reason why, for instance, well, when I'm meditating, I'm in the moment. I have no trouble with that.
Right.
Except maybe after 15, 20 minutes, I begin to fall asleep. I get
Oh, well.
too relaxed.
Yes.
You know.
You know what? But at nighttime, it's okay to go to sleep meditating.
Right.
Because what you want to be sure that when you go to sleep at night, you meditate. You like the Bible says, never let the sun go down on your wrath, right? On your anger.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, in the morning you wake up, and you put yourself in a subjective state. You submerge, surrender into this sea of spirit, and you find nutrient, and you overcome your emotional. Because when you sleep at night, you tend to recover as an animal. Okay, but then if you recover as an animal, the animal is subject to the animal world and the spirit world that controls all those animals around you. So what you have to do is neutralize some of that energy. You have to, I don't know how to say it, but you have to neutralize some of that energy through the meditation. You have to modify the energy which is purely animal. So you have to put on another force over the top of that.
But even though I don't have any trouble staying in the moment when I'm meditating, as soon as I walk away from the meditation, quite often I have like music in my head, and I can't make it stop without making myself stop.
No. A lot of the sins. See, your sin comprised of listening to too much music, obviously.
A lot worse than that.
Yeah, but one of your sins, yes, right.
Right.
That was you see, a sin. What a sin is to distract yourself from guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Music becomes a sin. I can listen to music, and it doesn't run around in my head simply because I heard the music and it was pretty, but I didn't use it to assuage guilt, to take me away to reject reality. Anything you use to reject reality, drinking. So I can drink a glass of wine with my dinner, and a little sip is enough for me. But if I have guilt and I'm losing myself in the experience and finding, then it becomes a connection to the other world. That drink, that music becomes a connection to the other world. And that spirit of the music, the spirit of the drink, the spirit that lurks behind all things that we use that way. I don't care what it is, whether it's playing with your railroad trains. Anything you use to pull you, to give yourself a high, anything you involve yourself deeply, anything you use abnormally to escape reality and reinforce something within you that a wrong is a right, see, involves you with a darker spirit. There's always a dark, even food, if you go to the refrigerator at night and you open up and you're looking for something, and even eating a turkey leg, which is innocent in itself, you know, a Dagwood sandwich, which is innocent in itself, if you're using it to escape into what you're getting, there's a spirit. Remember, human beings are spiritual, and the evolution of the spirit is more important than anything. We'll sacrifice our body for that. So that every time you eat a Dagwood sandwich or a turkey leg for the purposes of losing yourself into it, you'll find that your soul actually travels. It moves through feeling and through sensation away from reality, down through a current of feeling and energy which comes from this eating something sinfully, see, to arouse a feeling, to escape, and you actually travel to the other side of matter. There's another side of matter. Even when you sleep at night, if you're escaping from reality, first of all, you becomes nightmares. And you can travel beyond nightmares into where a dark, bottomless pit opens up, where you see unspeakable evils. The movement of the soul, when it's sinful, is a movement towards reinforcing the self which is made of sin. And the self which is made of sin cannot tolerate reality. It's like a vampire. It holds up the cape to the light. It can only move toward the darkness and operate in the darkness. And the movement towards the darkness, see, is an immersion in the sea of that spirit, so that you become more of a sinner, more complete as that kind of person. See, more ripe for hell as you die. Excuse me, I sound like an old-time preacher, but yes.
I was going to ask a question. Do you think it's a sin to have sex outside of marriage?
Oh yes.
The more that you speak, it sounds to me like it might even be a sin to have sex within marriage.
Well, it's true.
Because it would take me away from myself.
If you understand the laws of marriage, the principles of conscience, there's principles, thou shalt not steal, you don't take what doesn't belong to you. You know that. No one has to really tell you. If you're a human being, truly a human being, you know that you should respect the property of others. Instinctively, intuitively. Now, there are much more refined laws, and these apply also to the marriage relationship between men and women. And I tell you this, I only have, 30 seconds to tell you, that unless you have love, a divine love for that person, before the conjugal part of the marriage, you'll be sinning. And the framework of marriage is designed to bring you to God, like democracy. You can only have democracies for certain kind of people, and dictatorship is for certain kind of people. A free person can't survive in a dictatorship. A free soul. So if you use marriage, if you enter marriage lustfully, you enter into a dictatorship, and all the laws of God are reversed. But I'm looking at the clock, and I haven't got time to develop the idea. Thank you very much for being here this evening, and half an hour really isn't enough time to express all these things. And please keep listening and tell your friends to watch on weekends. Thank you very much.